Hi guys, Robbie here again from Kickback Garage. Now today we're going to fit the primary drive on the Lambretta motor, and we're going to fit new clutch plates. So if you've never seen that before or are going to have a go, then have a glance at the old video. The video's probably going to be a little bit longer than normal, basically because I'm drinking. I've run out of whiskey, but I'm on the old cider today. So let's skip the intro and we'll get straight to it. I really hope you can see this properly. I'm bringing you in all close and personal because I got a request for doing that. And I'll show you the parts and components individually as I go on here. So the first thing I do, if I have a completely new build or a build of oddball parts, is I fit the clutch and front sprocket loosely, and I really like to check the alignment of the sprockets. Now the simplest way to do this, and the way that I do this, is actually just by using a metal straight edge. And what you can do is, if you place those, there you go, if you place those on the teeth, you can see if you can rock it or not. Now I've obviously adjusted this already, so this is all perfectly lined up. And this is the way we do it in the BSA world. So if it's good enough for the BSA, then it's got to be good enough for this. Now the reason why I do this is obviously because if the sprockets aren't aligned properly, then you can get excessive wear on the chain. So you can wear out chains really quick if they're a bit skew whiff in relationship to each other. Now, if you're having problems trying to line these up, I'll just take this off so you can have a quick look what I've used here. If you're having problems lining these up, there's some cool little gadgets out there that you can buy now. On a normal setup, the front sprocket height is non-adjustable, so you have to adjust the rear sprocket or your clutch basket with clutch shims like these. Now I use MB Development's shims. The nice thing about those is they have the measurement on them, and these are actually bang on. So if it says that it's a millimeter thick, then it is a millimeter thick if you measure it with your calipers. So that's a good quality product there from MB, which I swear by. And another cool thing that is done, if you're having problems, because if you go too far, if you go too thin on the clutch side shim to be able to get it aligned with your front sprocket, then it can drag on the end plate here for your gearbox, the clutch basket itself. So to alleviate this problem, MB Developments have made, I think it's 3 or 4 different oil thrower washers in different thicknesses, which I think is pretty genius. But this is the standard sill, sorry, and it's working fine. I don't need to adjust it any higher. So let's proceed with putting it all back together. So you've got your oil thrower on the front there, and on the oil thrower you put the drive sleeve. Maybe. There you go. Just have to find room for it. And then we need a chain. After the drive sleeve, you fit your sprocket, and you can see that it's the right way around because you've got these 2 cuts on the bottom of the sprocket here. That is for oil and lubrication. And you've got these ramps on the top here, and they're obviously on the top. It's a good idea to put your chain on at this point and fit the front sprocket. There we go. Lovely jubbly. Now the next component on here is this little sliding dog thing. This is where the spring sits, and as you can see, it's got these two ramps. So the two ramps on this one face down to engage on the two ramps on your front sprocket. Voila! I have got a brand new spring for this because the one I took off looked really dodgy, so this is a new one, and we fit that on the seat here. Now the next component is the top hat, which looks like this, and that goes there, and we have the bolt, this one, and that fits there. Now these can be a bit of a pain to fit, and I'll show you why, and I'll show you how I do it to alleviate my life. Is that what it's called? If you look closely on the top out, you can see it's got splines, and also got splines obviously on the drive shaft. The difficulty is when you've fit your spring and your bolt, then you can't see where it sits on the splines. So what I do is, just to make my life a little bit easier, is I fit them on the top there before I fit the spring. Make a mark on the top hat and on the sprocket. And that gives me a point to aim for when I put this together. This can be a little bit of a hassle to get on, but there are tools that you can fit to your side case and screw down, wind down, so that you can compress the spring, and you can see if you hit the splines properly or not. The one that I was looking at that I thought looked most nifty was, I think, what are they called? JD scooters in Germany. But unfortunately, they don't answer emails or messages on Facebook, and they don't send out of Europe. And me not being in Europe, that means I'm buggered, so I'm stuck to the old method. Another one is MB Developments. They've made a top hat like this. They just released it this week actually, which is a bit of a coincidence, and the splines here are slightly chamfered, so it makes hitting the splines on the drive shaft a little bit easier. But I've used this method for years and it works fine, so let's get to it. Fit the spring, fit the top hat. I'll try and line it up as good as I can there. I use a little dab of Loctite 243. Don't have to go to town there, just a little dash. And then we have to ease it in there. Screw it in. That's a roundabout, that's a roundabout. We'll sort that out in a second. Then you've got the clutch basket, and I want to show you the difference between the clutch baskets. Now, this is some generic 5-plate clutch basket, which is a little bit dirty, and what we call the GP DL type. The reason why I know this is a generic 5-plate clutch basket, apart from the fact that it's got these lightning holes in, is if you can see here, there is a recess. Show you, can you see that recess there? And that enables you to fit an extra plate, or if you're lucky and you can live with a 4-plate clutch basket, it's still a good idea, because that means that when you pull in the clutch, you've got a bigger chance of freeing up the plates properly to disengage the clutch. This is your Li TV type clutch, and as you can see, maybe there are springs inside the clutch here. Now, the reason for this is maybe a little bit easier to see there. The reason for this is that's a second clutch cush drive, and what that does is it takes off the strain when you're changing gear and makes gear changes a lot easier. Now, the funny thing about Lambretta is that you've got two cush drives, so either to save money or to save breakages, Innocetti went over to the solid type clutch like this one. As I mentioned earlier, the GPDL type uses this bush that it rides on, and the Li TV SX type with the cush springs in here, that uses a set of two sets of needle bearings that sit in there. Now, needle bearings are very good for your clutch, probably better than the bronze bush, but don't be tempted to use needle bearings in the DL type because the surface just isn't hard enough to take the bearings, unfortunately. So we're sort of stuck with the bronze bush there. Now, if you're just doing a standard build, then it's okay to use this type with the springs in the basket, but they are known to fail. As soon as you start tuning, then you really should go over to the solid type. And as I've said, you've got a cush drive there anyway. So the general consensus is most people change these out for the solid types when they rebuild engines. So that's one to watch. Right, I've loosely fit the cush drive and screw on there, and fit the bronze bush. Need to remember the shim. I've got a mark on that one, so that's the one that I used to line up the chain. The shim on the rear there. If you're not sure what type of shims you've got lying around, then have a look in Stickies, the old Bible, and they've got a really nifty little shim washer diagram that you can place the shim over and it'll tell you what it is. Okay, this is the clutch shim. Fit that under the basket, and what I like to do is fit the basket in the chain like so, and then you've got the clutch spider. This one has got like a serrated spline here which fits on your gear cluster. Just have to ease it in there. There you go. And you need a tab washer, and this one is knackered. I found another one somewhere. Where did I put it? And this is a used but not quite so knackered one. The tab washer fits over, there's a nipple here that sticks out further than the other rivets. So that fits on the clutch spider like so. And then I have to find my clutch bolt nut. There she is. And then you fit the clutch nut. I like to fit the clutch tool like so. It's going that way. So that's so it holds. It holds the basket, and when you've got the chain on, it holds the front sprocket. So the trick with this is you tighten up the front sprocket ish. don't tighten it too tight. Grab the old rubber hammer, and if you give it a tap, it moves and slots itself into the spline there. Actually, and you can hear it, and my marks, they're not quite lined up there, so I'm not quite in. That seems to have done it. It's just that if you tighten that down without it hitting the splines, this can actually rub on your side case, so it's important to get it right. Just be careful, don't whack the crap out of it. Tighten that up gently and see if it... Yep, definitely. Big difference there. Now I'm actually tightening it. I can actually see it's moving down on the splines there. Then it's time to get your trusty torque wrench out, and I tighten up this bolt with about 22 to 25 foot-pounds or 29 to 35 Newton meter. Okay. Because I use Loctite on this, I'll set my gauge here to 32, I reckon. If it binds up really quickly, then you've not hit the splines properly. So don't take the piss, take it up again and try and get it to sit properly in the splines. There we go. You still on? Yep. So a quick look at Sticky's here, and he says the clutch bell center nut, Indian figure, should be set to 6.7 to 7.5 kilograms per meter, 22-25 foot-pounds, or 29 to 34 Newton meter. So we'll do the same there as well and go for the old 32. Job done. And then we can bend up the tab washer, and then I knock it into place with one of those bit screwdrivers that I never use. Job done. Right, I'm fitting a 5-plate clutch system here. The standard is obviously 4-plate, and 4-plate, that works for most applications, to tell you the truth. It's not until you're like over 18 horsepower really where you need to mess around with stronger springs and more plates, all that sort of stuff. And these have been soaked in ST90 oil, gear oil, straight 90, for actually a couple of days, but like 24 hours overnight or something like that is fine. The advantage of using 5 plates instead of 4 plates is obviously the fact that you get more area on the corks. So with this being a plate extra, it's actually 20% more gripping power, so that it should cure clutch lip. The disadvantage about these is the stack height is basically the same as a 4-plate clutch, so there's less meat on the cork itself. Now I'll have a look at the 4-plate here, and you can see that this normal 4-plate clutch is quite a lot thicker than the 5-plate clutch, and that is basically because if these are too thick, you're not going to have enough room to fit them in a standard clutch, and they probably won't release properly when you put them in. So that's sort of the downside of this, because even though you have more area, 20% more aerial grip, you have less cork. So that means that they'll probably wear out faster. Before you fit your clutch plates, you obviously have to fit your springs. Now I've got brand new springs for this build. So you basically just fit the springs in the recesses here on your clutch spider. Now, if you're doing this with the scooter, the engine in the scooter, sorry, then obviously they're not going to stand like that. So what you can do is fit a blob of grease in the bottom. It's a little bit tricky, but it's no problem doing it. And there is, if you think it's a real pain in the arse, something that I haven't bought is a spring, a special tool that just holds your springs in place there. But I normally use a blob of grease in the bottom. And then we have the clutch pressure plate, which fits over your springs like so. And you can put this in wrong, so make sure that all the springs are lined up with the holes in the top here, so that they sit in the recess there properly. You have to fit your clutch tool, the very same one we used to take it out with. Right, this is the order in which you put the clutch plates and these clutch steels into your Lambretta clutch. I wind up this all the way up, gives me plenty of room. Now if you've got the bike in seat, then you sort of have to wiggle them all in and tighten down your clutch, and then place them on while the springs are compressed. But with it on the side, it makes the job a little bit easier. Clutch plate first, cork first, and you have to put it over the ear there, and then you have and you need a steel, and so on. So it's clutch, it's cork, steel, cork, steel, cork, steel. Now if you've got an original one, it will be cork and then top plate, but because I've got 5, I've got an extra steel and then cork and the top plate. The top plate is really distinguishable compared to the steels that go in between the corks, because it's got this chamfered edge and it's quite a lot thicker. There's 2 types of these. If you're not sure what you got, refer to your stickies, it tells you all about that there. So I just put that loosely on the top, and as always, remember to use the tab that goes at the bottom of your clutch spring compressor. La 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 la. And we tighten up the compressor there. Before you tighten it fully, grab yourself a big screwdriver. Ta-da! And if the springs aren't quite in place, this is an okay time to get them in there. Let's have a look. There you go. Easily done. it's just that they sit properly at the recess on the rear here. Right, and then we slot them in, try and slide them in here. Why aren't you sliding in? Why aren't you sliding in? That's stealing. This is the tricky bit. If you've got a scooter and the bike, then it's a bit more tricky to slot them in here. There we go. These spring retainers that you lock the clutch down with, I've actually encountered a couple of times where they've jumped out of the clutch while the bike is on the move. So the moral of that story is, use proper quality ones. Don't just buy shit ones off eBay or other auction sites. Grab one from a proper dealer like MB or something like that, or use original sill because they're okay as well. What I do is, when I fit these, is you slot them in. There's a groove here. You slot them in the groove in the top, and try and start just over the center of one of these tabs here, and I'll show you the reason for that when we start moving. So I sort of bend it in there, get it in, and then you can see it's moved a little bit already. Now you might need to use some brute force or lever it in a little bit with a screwdriver there. But I like to set these, if possible, I set them so that the open end of the retaining washer here is on one of the tabs, so it's not hanging around in loose air, as we say in Norway. And then it's take off the clutch tool again. Right, we're on wobbly cam here, and the reason for that is, one thing you have to watch out for is that the tabs on the clutch plate that sits at the top under this retaining plate, make sure that they sit properly in the basket. Sometimes it's actually necessary if you're using oddball sizes of oddball clutch plates and steels. Sometimes you have to bend down the top plate, these tabs, just so that it sits properly in the clutch bell. But as you can see, this one is very nicely under there. It's about 0.5 millimeter under actually, so that shouldn't be any problem. Just to confuse you somewhat, I've just turned the motor around and now it's the right way up, and I'm going to fit the chain tensioner. This is the one from Casa Performance. It can be used for both pushing and pulling on the chain. You can have it over or under, and I'd say highly recommend those. They're a great bit of kit. Blue Loctite again. When I set up these Casa Performance type chain tensioners, I like to enter the screws, but I don't tighten it. Almost till it's starting to tighten, and then push down on it. I do like to have a little bit of movement on the bottom of the chain there. That's a bit too much. I'll nip it on. That's good. I really hope that this video was useful for you if you've never changed clutch plates in your Lambretta before. It's quite an easy job. There are some one to watches there, but as I said before, buy yourself a sticky's manual and have a look at the video, and it should be pretty straightforward. So I do read your comments, and I do comment on your comments because I've not got that many subscribers yet, so I can do that. And if there's anything else you want me to go through on a Lambretta engine, then just give me a shout, because the next thing I'm going to do is completely overhaul my SS 240 engine. So I'm going to strip that and change bearings and stuff like that. But if there's anything in particular you want me to concentrate on and give you some tips on, then just give me a shout. So do the old thumbs up. How's that? Is it like that? Yep, something like that. Give me a old thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll carry on drinking my cider and see you in the next video. Ta-ra! Messing around with these cameras, battery's going flat. Alle sprang I lag og ville komme under tak. Ingen av oss merket at du hadde falt ifra. Hvorfor valgte du å dra? Hvem I faen kunne se den komme? Da høsten tok over, sa vi hadde brått la oss sommer. What?